When it comes to reviewing an episode from Jimmy Neutron, I have multiple episodes on what that episode I can talk about. The Feud, which is an episode that I talked about in my commentary of Bullets of Destiny's review of it. The Trouble with Clones, well, it's a sequel to Sin of the Clones, but I don't want to do a review of a sequel of an episode that I've already done since I did that episode in the first Cartoon Crisis 3 years ago. And The Incredible Shrinking Town. Well, people make fun of Jimmy to the point that he reaches to his limit by almost using his shrink ray. But then someone bumped into him and the shrink ray got destroyed, causing the citizens in Retroville to be small. And also Carl Weasel Boy Genius, but that would be too obvious to review, and I wouldn't. The reason why I'm going to be reviewing the Science Fail episode is because this episode really goes to show onto how they tried to make Cindy be way more better than Jimmy by having him banned, trying to actually win first place in the science fail. But at the same time, when it comes to our moods and personality in this, it's really questionable. I usually this is one of the episodes that I really cannot stand Cindy for how she's portrayed in, and we're gonna get to that soon. The episode starts with Jimmy showing off his latest invention called the oil substitute machine. Well, it can suck down the garbage, and in the machine it turns into oil. He's going to be using this for the science fair, but at the same time, it can also detect two other objects that has garbage on them, which leads to the climax of this episode at the end of the episode. Anyway, when people are getting psyched for the science fair, well, mainly Jimmy, Cindy appears to say that Jimmy is the one that keeps winning all the science fair while also completely doing a court parody. Not really a parody, but something that the principal is doing in order to actually prove that Cindy should have Jimmy banned from the science fair or not. Now, don't get me wrong, I can understand that Cindy's motivations in this scene is understandable since that Jimmy has won multiple science fairs, and people are mostly getting sick and tired of it. They don't see him as a friend or a cool person, but they cannot deny that he's way too intelligent for their own good. But this just leads to the same plot of what Norma Boy had when it comes to Jimmy's smartness completely annoys so many people to the point that they wish that he was normal. I understand that this is this type of stuff that is supposed to give people a chance in order to become victorious over other people who aren't as smart than them, but the issue is that they had to have Jimmy completely banned from the science fair instead of just having him not compete there. Cindy's motivations might have worked, except the fact that he wants Jimmy completely banned from the science fair by any means necessary, instead of just having him not compete whatsoever. It's really honestly hard to actually see her motivations in this as just trying to be better than the other students in this school, but when it comes to her own motivations on being the smartest than everyone else, it really makes her a hypocrite. Believe me, I can understand that Cindy is the second smartest person in this whole show behind Jimmy Neutron, but whenever she tries to do something like this by trying to get the easy way out by having Jimmy completely banned, it makes her really a hypocrite that people will probably think of Cindy as being the smartest since that Jimmy's completely gone out of the picture. And I would be able to actually appreciate this on Cindy's motivation, but this episode has just started, and we haven't gotten to one of the worst parts of this episode. Since that Jimmy is completely banned, he can't be able to show off his new invention on how he can actually eliminate garbage and turn it to oil with his machine. And then when Hugh completely sees the invention in the blue pits himself, it gave him an idea. Back at the science fair, we get to see Cindy completely boasting on she's gonna be able to beat everyone in the science fair, but this just leads to jealousy and more glares from the other characters. Do you want to see onto how people say that Cindy is a hypocrite in this episode? I do understand that she wants to win first place like everyone else in this. But at the same time, whether she's in the mood or whether she's in a good mood or bad mood, it's honestly confusing. For example, Libby made this invention it can depend, a music can play on depending on whatever mood someone else is in, which is actually kind of a cool invention, to be quite honest. And when we see Cindy completely having a great time, while also completely seeing Jimmy arriving at the fair, even though he's banned, yeah, this is honestly the issue that I have with Cindy, is that her moods just goes all over the place, whether she's in a good or bad mood. She really wants Jimmy to be away. She really wants Jimmy to stay away from the science fair, but at the same time, Jimmy just cannot, because he loves the science fair to the point that it's just too hard for him to go away. Not only that, while the guests are about to appeal, Cindy's invention goes haywire, and Jimmy is offered to help. But Cindy denies, only to want him to fix his machine. To me, this is the type of stuff that actually makes Jimmy a lot more helpful, and there's really no reason for him to have him be banned from the science fair. And then when Cindy completely shows off his invention, she's about to be in first place by the judges, since that whole invention is considered better than everyone else. And she feels remorse on having Jimmy completely banned. And then when she has her hand on Libby's invention again, she's really depressed. Even though that she completely said to Libby, "Oh, who asked you?" I would consider that line really humorous, and honestly a good way to have the development between Sydney's and Jimmy's relationship, but at the same time, it doesn't excuse for what this episode does for its ending. Anyway, when we get to see the noble community appeal, since that Hugh gave the blueprints to him involving Jimmy's invention, they all go outside and see that they made a huge invention, which I honestly don't understand onto how they managed to make this machine in a span amount of time while Jimmy got into the science fair, but at the same time, I honestly think they're just trying to actually have this episode be longer than it needs to be. Now, I understand that Who's just trying to make Jimmy feel better, since that it's his son, and he wants to do the right thing by showing the blueprints to the noble community. The committee is what I mean, committee. But at the same time, is that when we get to see Jimmy completely showing off the invention that the community made along with the other workers, it does work out well by seeing that the machine can suck out garbage, except the fact that Jimmy is still banned from the science community, from the science fair. And then we reach to the issue that leads to this episode becoming the worst. Bo Peep completely arrived with his science project, and I honestly think that this leads to a plot device onto how the humans or dogs completely get sucked into the machine that the noble community has made. Because, like I mentioned, with the trash completely covered with the humans and the dogs in this, the machine completely sucks them in. Now look, if some of you guys are going to say that it's mainly Jimmy's invention setback is that his machine can suck into anything that is considered trash, and it's something that Jimmy needs to work on, I honestly think that none of this would have never happened if none of the humans got completely dirty in the first place. And keep in mind, it was all Bo Peep's fault that caused his invention to go haywire by not really haywire, but sucking the humans almost into the machine. And when Jimmy is just trying to stop the dogs from sucking in, this is up to Cindy and her friends in order to stop the machine from destroying the humans from getting, well, you know, the show was this close on getting violent, but luckily it didn't. So anyway, Cindy's plan is to have Sheen's, Carla's, and Lippy's invention in order to stop the machine from causing any damage to the humans. So they use their inventions by stopping them, which I will admit is actually kind of the most entertaining part. But what leads to it kind of ruins the climax of this. When the machine is completely done, allowing Jimmy to stop holding the sucking, the mobile community completely takes the badge away from Jimmy, or a medal from Jimmy, and say that, I can't believe you're not in jail, despite the fact that it wasn't Jimmy's fault. It was all Bo Beep's intention. Seriously, I understand that this is mainly something that Jimmy needs to learn, but at the same time, the thing that he messed up the most is having people completely dirty. So I honestly think that he could have just told people whoever is dirty just to stay away from his invention, but to prevent any serious situations. And besides, it wasn't even the inventor's fault. I understand that this is a setback that Jimmy needs to learn, but at the same time, I honestly think that this is really pressuring to the point that Jimmy deserves to get punished, because it's another episode where Jimmy's inventions goes way too far, but in this episode, his invention, despite having a setback, wasn't the inventor's entirely fault. Seriously. As far as I'm concerned, this is just only there just to have Jimmy get punished for the sake of being punished for his inventions. Despite the fact that the invention that the mobile committee made is honestly the blueprints that Jimmy was probably only using for the science fair, and then maybe afterwards he might get critiqued from it and probably need to learn more on how to make his inventions better. Seriously. And the fact that the mobile community, the committee, and the other people made this machine in a short amount of time, I honestly think that it really goes to show. Unless if the machine was already made, but that just raises even more questions. Anyway, the ending of this episode really goes to show onto how this episode is considered the worst from my perspective. Since that Libby, Carla, and Sheen completely saved their lives, the reward, despite not rewarding Sydney, since that she was the one that came up with the plan herself. And believe me when I say this, is that as much as I really think that the scenes involving Libby having mixed opinions towards Jimmy in this episode would have been a lot more better if the episode didn't end off with a terrible note. Because after she tries to actually say that she's the one who came up with the plan that deserves the award, the judges didn't care whatsoever. And then when Jimmy tries to cheer her up by saying that leadership is really a reward of itself, what does Cindy do? He completely puts the shot that was made from her invention over Jimmy and just walks away. This is the same ending from the A Beautiful Mind episode where Jimmy's friends just completely attack Jimmy because of the moral that Jimmy just said that friendship is rich. Seriously, this is the same ending. Except that unlike in that ending, this is really show how terrible Cindy is, because after everything that Jimmy did by fixing her invention, and the fact that his invention that the committee made wasn't entirely his fault, just really shows that Cindy is just going out of her way just to punish Jimmy no matter what. And the ending involving Sheen and Carla in this, Sheen of just trying to do a court thing like before, doesn't really make this ending a lot more better. It is humorous. This is prime Sheen not being vandalized, but at the same time, it just isn't enough. Do you want to see onto why I cannot stand Cindy in this? Throughout the majority of this episode, she wants Jimmy to get banned from the science fair, and then when she appeals in the science fair, she's upset, but when her machine completely goes haywire, Jimmy helps out, and she managed to win first place. And then when the community appeals with the machine, well, Bo Peep's invention completely ruins everything because of for a plot device, and the fact that she needs Libby, Sheen, and Carlos helping her to stop Jimmy's machine from causing a haywire, and the fact that she doesn't get a reward, and she still blames Jimmy despite the fact that it wasn't entirely Jimmy's fault. I can really tell that the writing in this episode still has a lot of issues. I can understand that it's mainly, this is towards Jimmy. If people are going to say that this is mainly Cindy's fault for trying to be a hypocrite, it still doesn't excuse the fact that she actually came up with this plan. And to be quite honest, seeing Sheen, Carla, and Libby winning the awards at the same time just isn't really enough. It really makes this episode a lot more complicated for me to actually see Cindy's motivations in this, and the fact that she's really ungrateful for no matter what Jimmy does for her. This episode was really a stressful mess from beginning to end. I can get that some people may like this episode when it comes to the development of Cindy, on how she's really regretful for having Jimmy banned after he completely fixed her invention. But when you completely saw how this ending is structured, you really have second thoughts. This episode was just painful for me to actually enjoy. By having Jimmy completely banned, despite the fact that it's basically taking the same elements from a normal boy, except that it just has Jimmy completely banned from the school instead of just not having them competing, which would have been normal for him, is honestly going way overboard. If people didn't care that Jimmy's way smaller than the other people, then I honestly think that Cindy's motivations would have been backfired either way. But at the same time, the kids are still mean to Jimmy no matter what, minus Sheen and Carla. And speaking of Sheen and Carla, their presence in this episode is just to show off their inventions, but at the same time ends up winning at the end, despite the fact that it was all Cindy's plan. And in my opinion, I honestly think that everything in this episode, when it comes to how it's structured, would have been a lot more better if it wasn't this harsh and really forced, and making Cindy's character way more hateable than necessary. Whether you like Cindy or not, I cannot stand of how she's portrayed in this. And believe me, in season 3, she becomes way more ruder and way more forced when it comes to the finalization of her ruthlessness. Well, not really ruthlessness, but his selfish ways of just trying to be smarter than Jimmy. This episode may be debatable on whether it's good or bad. For me, I really think that this episode was really stressful for me to actually watch, just for a combination of making a review of it for Cartoon Crisis 2. I give this episode a 2.75 out of 10.